Okay, I'm going to share my screen and dive into a super fast version of the lesson. And then if anybody has questions, we can dive deeper. But I want to be able to let other people share if they want to. Forgive and forget, the freedom of finally letting go. This I wanted to cover. I had something else I wanted to cover tonight, and it just wasn't coming together. Even though I had everything in line, it just didn't feel right, and I was feeling frustration. And so when I went and did my own work around it, I realized it was because I was pushing to share the wrong thing. And this, even though I was going to do reporting on the side, I want to make sure that everybody really understands it and have some feedback throughout the slides. So this is what we're going to do, because this forgiving part and the forgetting is something almost everyone misses. The reason and the how in the forgetting and why it's linked to forgiveness. So I wanted to go over this with you so that you can make sure you implement this part in your everyday life, but especially when you're doing your self hypnosis. It's imperative that you have that forgiveness factor, not only for the perpetrators that are making you feel or were making you feel the way you were, or your perception that they were making you. Nobody can make you but yourself, but also for yourself. Even if you feel like you have no blame, forgiving yourself for thinking that way or being in the situation or not knowing how to get it out of it or whatever, it's always important that you have this forgiveness piece. And we're going to show you why right now. We, meaning myself and I, all of my personalities. So we're going to talk about the law of flow, why we need to forgive, why we don't want to sometimes, what forgetting means, and how to do it. Okay, we're going to start with the law of the flow. So there are lots of things that flow naturally on the earth, in our bodies, all around us. What are some of those things that naturally flow? We have water, we have our breath. We always go back to the flow of your breath. And if you remember a lot of the meditations, I'll bring your breath as if it's the ocean tide, that flow, the coming in and the out, the natural law of flow. Our tears flow. It's important to allow the tears to flow. They want to flow. That's very cleansing. Money. You ever notice that the more you try to hold on to money, the more it disappears? But when you have that mindset of abundance and you allow it to go, and then you expect and have gratitude when it comes back, that flow in and out. Blood flows. If we don't have our blood flowing through our body, we have a problem, don't we? What else? What else flows? Somebody unmute yourself and tell me what other things flow naturally. Sweat. Yes. And I can attest that if you don't naturally sweat, you're going to have problems. I would overheat regularly. I also had to do liver cleanses and things like that because I wasn't sweating out my toxins. Great one. What else?
Music.
Yeah, thank you. Duh. I don't know why I've never put that one on my list. Music. Definitely, if it doesn't have a good flow, our ears hear it and it's uncomfortable, isn't it? What else?
Our thoughts.
Our thoughts. Yes.
So our thoughts are like the beginning of the waterfall at the top, and those thoughts then flow down through our body. So whether they're whatever we choose to focus on there is going to then be like the rainbow that then processes down through everything else.
Yeah. In fact, we use the breath and our thoughts together to specifically you imagine or visualize breathing into a body part that's a bundle of stress to relax it and release. So we use double flow. Great one, Smisi. Thank you. Who else has one?
Divine love flows.
Yes.
And it's
Love.
only blocked, if we don't feel it, it's blocked to the extent we allow that blockage.
Yeah. And love, love in all directions. Love with our creator, our higher power, love with our families, love with nature. Love, if love is blocked, it doesn't feel good, does it? We feel when our love is blocked. Anything else?
I want to say an artistic flow in more than just images or things, but in writing or reading, if it doesn't flow properly, you don't get what's coming across.
Yes.
Language. Yeah.
Language, yes, all of that. That's what I felt today when I was trying to put things together, and it just wasn't flowing. And I was like, oh, it was because I was the wrong direction. So that great, great references, everyone. Anyone else have another important flow that we feel and is necessary?
Marianne said electricity and energy in our body.
Yes. That's
Mhm.
why we do the tapping. The meridians, that natural energy flow goes along with the blood, the air, everything flows through our bodies and through the world. So
Emotions.
yes, oh my gosh, because if emotions aren't flowing, they're bottled up in triggers, and they cause physical ailments, or we feel it when energy is blocked and emotions block us, right? So everybody agrees that we like flow, right? We all like flow.
Yep.
Ant flow we don't love so much, but it's necessary. So yes, we like flow. We like being in flow. If the flow isn't happening, we feel it, we recognize it, it's uncomfortable. Okay, so what happens when the flow is blocked? Does anybody know about the Dead Sea? It's kind of like for those of you in Utah, the Salt Lake Sea. What is that? The Great Salt Lake. Yeah, so the Dead Sea is even saltier than that. Above the Dead Sea, there's the Jordan River that flows into the Dead Sea. Above that is the Sea of Galilee. It is beautiful and full of life, but the Sea of Galilee has an input of river, and then the output also. It has that natural flow. It receives and then releases. And the Jordan River flows all the way down to the Dead Sea, and then it stops. It's stagnant. And the only way to get rid of the water is through evaporation. And that means, well, I'm just going to read it if you haven't read it already. The Dead Sea has one main inlet, the Jordan River, but does not have an outlet, so it loses its water mainly through evaporation. This high saline level and the harsh climate makes the lake devoid of life, except for the algae and other mice. So teeny tiny microorganisms are the only things that live in the Dead Sea because it's stagnant. And this is what happens when you block the law of flow. It's not a good thing, right? So bringing that into forgiveness, we block the flow ourselves when we withhold our forgiveness. We block ourselves from receiving. We want to receive. It's natural, the give and take. So what are we blocking ourselves from feeling? We block ourselves from feeling love, compassion, peace. What else? Your turn.
Grace.
Grace. Yeah, we want grace. We block ourselves from feeling grace when we are refusing to give grace, aren't we? What else?
Receiving good ideas.
Yes. Oh my gosh.
Writer's block, basically.
Yeah. Yeah, we talked about the flow in language, and when we're literally blocking that flow, we don't have the words. What else?
Really, if you think about it, everything that flowed before that we named,
Mm-hmm.
all of that can be blocked. So we can have physical elements with our blood, with our breath, with our tears, with our emotions, our feelings, our energy. I mean, it can literally shut down anything in our body. It just depends where our weakest spot is in our body.
Ding, 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 ding. Well, you just saved us a lot of time. Thank you. That was Annie, right?
That was
Or
Marianne.
Marianne? That was Marianne. Okay, you sound like Annie. Yes. Yeah. So and something to think about, if you have tension, if you have blocked breath, blood, all of those things we mentioned before, you can just ask yourself, is there something I need to forgive? And that can be yourself as well. So I don't know if anybody wrote, thought about anybody that came to mind that they might need to forgive, and that also can include yourself. But we're going to just put that on the side, and we're going to talk about it in a minute. But just think, if anybody else comes to your mind as we go through this, just jot it down, because it also doesn't necessarily have to be a person. We could need to forgive our organs. I had to forgive my liver for not doing its job, I felt like. Turns out it wasn't my liver. My liver was doing exactly what it needed to do. It was just so built up because I was refusing to sweat. And that was me. That was a whole thing I had to uncover with my mentor about my skin and what was stored there, and the idea of flow and what I was blocking, and a whole long thing. So just to bring to your awareness, what about you? What needs forgiveness in your life? Okay, now on the flip side, when we can forgive, we open the flow. We release, like when we've got that hose and it pinches and it stops the flow, and we get all the kinks open, which also could be called triggers. When we open that flow, we open ourselves to receiving, to feeling love, compassion, peace, and what else? Once we open the line of the flow with our forgiveness, what can we then feel more accurately?
We can feel compassion on the people that we perceived hurt us or harmed us, and understanding, like in I've been working on that work for my past for years. So it's almost like a meditative place now for me when I go back to that space at 6 years old. And I can almost see the surroundings from my parents' perspective, my siblings' perspective, not just my little 6-year-old perspective. I can see everyone else's perspective too, and I can have compassion and then understand how that played out into our families' lives, and be more sensitive to my other siblings' perspective without telling them that I know stuff that they probably wouldn't want me to know, you know.
Right. That's an excellent point, and thank you for bringing that up. When you have that awareness and compassion, the compassion does open the door to greater understanding, and that understanding, then you can shift your own. That awareness leads to, when you have the acceptance, forgiveness is wrapped up in that. But you don't need to tell anybody. You don't have to let everybody know how smart you are, how wise you are, how great you are at forgiving. The best people, I find that it's amusing to me when you can go on the internet now and see all of the people that are self-professed woke. I'm awake, I'm woken. Well, a person that's really woken doesn't need to tell anybody they are. They just live that way, right? So Thanks for having compassion on them to not point out those things. But isn't it beautiful and healing when you can open that door to seeing things clearly? Okay, so we have forgiving and forgetting. We always hear those together, forgive and forget. We have, when we break it down, we want forgive. There's the giving part, so that we can get. We give so we can receive. Do you see the flow there? We give and get. So when we give away the pain, the hurt, the anger, the judgment, the whatever that we're holding on to, just think of, you open your hand and visualize, put everything that you are holding on to right in your hand and then clutch it tight. When we are holding on to that, we're blocking everything, right? Just all of the things that we said, we're blocking ourselves. And I know you've heard this, it's not about them. We don't forgive for them, we forgive for us. Because when we're holding on to all of this stuff, we don't have room to hold on to anything else. We're blocking the flow. So we give it away. We give away the burden so that we can receive. And what do we receive? We can receive closure. We can receive peace. We can receive the understanding, like Samisi was talking about. What else do we receive when we can give away that pain?
Inspiration.
Thank you. Definitely. What else?
For me, I get a change of perspective sometimes, or even the people around me or the circumstances will actually change. Like it's miraculous. Like only all this work was done inside me. I mean, the forgiving, and yet all this stuff outside me appears to be changing.
Yes. Thank you for pointing that out, because so often we go into therapy or something because we want to change the people around us. And the irony is that we have to change ourselves. And when we change the way we see others, others actually change. So that's awesome. Anybody else have thoughts?
I just to piggyback on that, I know when I was going through all my stuff, trying to get to the point where I could stop attracting users and abusers into my life, it wasn't until I could truly forgive the users and abusers of my past that I stopped inviting users and abusers into my life and my home. And it wasn't just the men that I was dating, but it was the people I worked with, the friends I chose, more and more. All of those people who had the intention to use or abuse me started dropping out of my life when I was able to give forgiveness to them and others that had abused me. I didn't have to kick them out of my life. They left.
They left. Yes, because when you let go of, it's going back to the vibration, the law of vibration. When you're holding on to that rod of judgment, anger, hurt, I'm a victim, that's the vibration that you have, because that's what you're holding on to. And so then that's what you're attracting. When you release it, let it go, then you have open space to bring in more beautiful things, and it just leaves because you let it go. It's like, isn't it ironic that it's there right in front of you and all around you? And I'm glad that you mentioned that it crosses over into other things, because you can't do work on one area without it bleeding over into your finances, your relationship with time, your relationship with work, your relationship with because everything is relationships. So thank you for sharing. Anyone else? Okay.
Another cool thing that I've gotten is insights about reality. So it's almost like forgiveness and repentance. Like they break you out of the matrix.
Yes. Absolutely.
You
Yeah.
get to peek out.
Because that's another, that the law of the flow, your inspiration flows. I don't know how many times I've heard of stories where somebody needed to go do something. They felt inspired, that they were blocked. They were blocked, block, and they realized they had to forgive, or they had to apologize to their wife, or they had to, take something, clean something up emotionally, so that that inspiration could flow again. Okay, so we all consciously understand it's beneficial to forgive and forget and let go so we can receive. So why do we want to let go? For all those, it doesn't feel good. It's not my burden to carry. Why do I don't want to hold on to this. Holding on just reminds you of what happened, the ugliness, the sadness, the whatever. And sometimes we want to forgive because we know we need forgiveness. I know I need forgiveness myself, so I know I should forgive. Even if you have a hard time doing it, the should is there. What else? What are some other reasons why you want to let go?
To make space for other things. It's really hard to plant a garden when you don't get rid of the weeds first.
Good one. Great analogy. What else?
It's hard to look the other person in the eyes. And when you're related to them, that's really uncomfortable.
Yes, when you live with them, for sure. Yeah.
Mhm.
So just for the peace sake. Anything else?
When you forgive others, you have a greater capacity to own your own thoughts and choices and be a sovereign being, versus placing blame on someone for our own choices. That's not really a sovereign space. That's a king over me or queen over me.
Right.
And
To recognize it goes both ways.
yeah, it becomes a kind of a superior inferior relationship, instead of a equally sovereign relationship.
Yes. Giving forgiveness gives you permission to receive forgiveness.
Mm-hmm.
So we have all of these wonderful reasons why we know we should or want to let go. Why do we still hold on? Because there are always, like, as easy it is to forgive some things for some people, there's always that one thing though that I'm just holding on to because why? Okay, so sometimes what I see, especially with my clients, is this idea that if I forgive you, that's going to give you the message that it's okay what you did to me. And it's not okay, which is a lie, by the way. Forgiving has nothing to do with boundaries and saying that something was okay. We get the sense of they don't deserve forgiveness. This was too much. They crossed the line too many times. They don't deserve forgiveness. That also can go with yourself. Like, I knew better. I don't deserve forgiveness, which is also a lie. Another lie is that I have a valid reason for not being around them. If I don't forgive them, then, like Joy says, it feels uncomfortable to be around them. So it gives me an excuse to not be around them. A simple reason is I still feel hurt. I feel angry. I like to hold on to this for whatever reason. I'm not ready to let it go. What else? What are some other reasons that you found you hold on to things?
I feel like it becomes a social habit. I think sometimes we bond with each other over unforgiveness for another person or an organization. Like my kids and I, we cracked up. I've been divorced from my ex-husband now for 6 years. We were only married for 2, but for that time, my children and I have bonded over making fun of my ex-husband and the stupid things that he did to perturb me or to hurt me or whatever. And we were cracking up over something that he did, some stinker thing that he had done. And I realized, because my kids brought it up, I realized, oh my gosh, I'm over that now. I've moved on. But here we are bonding over being unforgiving of my ex-husband, which, how silly is that? But it becomes a social habit, I think.
I think you're absolutely right. And I think that's a really great point. And we can see that magnified in the world around us. How much blame do we put towards our government officials or our religious leaders or our school superintendents or whatever, and then we band together as kill the beast mentality. We like to me too, yeah, and jump on board with this reason for, and we gather up hate or anger or whatever that's stagnant in us for other reasons, and we ball it up and throw it at this one good reason. So that's an excellent point, of another way we lie to ourselves of why we need to hold on. Anybody else?
I have one.
Yeah.
I think it's because for 35 years I've been overlooking this thing, and I don't want to anymore. I want something to change. And if I forgive this time, then it means that's the way we're going to live for another 35 years. And I don't want to live that way. And so I don't know how to, how do you make a change? Am I just overlooking it one more time? Just rolling over and deciding to lump along?
Feels like forgiveness is permission to keep on doing. Sometimes it feels like if we forgive them, we're giving them permission to keep on doing the same thing over and over.
Yeah, that goes along with that first. It means what happened is okay when we know it's not okay. We also, that's the goes along with the, I want to hold on to this. I want a valid reason for not being around them, or to not continue in this behavior, which is not about forgiveness. That's a lie. It's not about forgiveness. That is about boundaries. And we get blurred between boundaries and forgiveness. And so we'll talk about that in a minute. But another thing that came to mind when you were talking, Joyce, is that sometimes people will have the feeling that if I forgive this last 10, 20, 30 years, then that means I wasted. If I've been holding on to something for 10 years because I know I'm right and they don't deserve forgiveness and all the reasons, whatever, and then you decide it's time to let go, that I don't like it, meaning I've wasted 10, 20, 30 years in that pattern, which also is a lie, because it wasn't a waste if you now break through and see it was all, it's like, how much more time do you want to stay there holding on to that garbage and rotting because it's not flowing anymore? So all of these, do you guys recognize that all of these are lies?
Yeah, I just thought of another one too, is that if I forgive, I think I like what you said about boundaries, that I'm the one that didn't put up the right boundaries. So now I can't forgive myself.
Oh, good point.
So, and oftentimes when we point the finger at someone else, it's really because we have a problem with ourselves. Yeah,
absolutely. The things that upset us most about other people are mirrors. Almost always.
I think often with me, I know sometimes I don't understand. I think I don't forgive sometimes because I think, okay, now what? Now what does it mean that I've forgiven this person? Or, now what does this life look like now that I'm no longer carrying this unforgiveness? Sometimes I think the unknown feels uncomfortable. Like, okay, so do I have a relationship with them? Do I reach out to them now that I've forgiven them in my heart? Do I let them know I've forgiven them? It's all the unknowns, I think.
What then?
What next?
Yeah.
What now?
Yeah, you're right. And that goes back to that that comfort zone. I've held on to this, or this is a part of me, because I've been holding it for so long. It's like if you have a growth on it becomes a part of you for so long. And if I get rid of it, then what will I put in my hands? I won't know what to do with
Kind of
it.
like a cigarette smoker when they stop
Yes.
smoking and they need something in their hands. They need
Yeah.
something to replace it with. What do we replace that unforgiveness with? Love, of course, but you know.
Well, all kinds of things. The flow, going back to the flow. Because it's a lie, what will I do? It's scary. What the unknown? What else will I put in there? All the answers, all of those things that naturally come with flow.
Mhm,
Doesn't that sound so much better? But
mhm.
because we like our comfort zone, we lie to ourselves for all of those things we just mentioned. Would everyone agree? Okay, everybody say with me, I am willing to forgive.
I am willing to
I am
forgive.
willing to forgive.
I am
Thank
willing
you.
to forgive.
Okay, because it makes sense. It's spelling it out and looking at it clearly and talking about it. Doesn't it just make sense? Like, oh, of course, why would I not forgive? All the benefits, if you make the cost and benefit analysis, the benefits for forgiving and letting go are so huge, and they outweigh whatever lies of benefits we thought there were. Okay, now I want to talk about the forgetting part.
Can I make a comment?
Yes, please do.
So I just had a huge breakthrough in this conversation, and didn't know there was emotion there. But when I was like 2 or 3, I was taking a bath with my older brother, and he asked me to suck on his penis, and I did. And my dad walked in and he pulled me out of the water and he spanked me and he said, "That's wrong." And I thought what it meant was I just need to do it right, but really, I made him wrong. And I'm like, I need to be right. And I didn't want to forgive him. I realized I never have, because I decided, like, in an extreme black and white situation, that like, oh, this guy, I thought he was good and now he's not. So I made him a bad guy. And I may have, the truth is I haven't forgotten. I haven't forgiven. In so many things in my life, I look for the bad and I judge because I don't want to get hurt again. I want to know that what's safe and what's not safe, because I realized that he wasn't safe anymore. But what that's done is it's destroyed all of my abilities to connect with men, and even my husband that I've had for 9 years. I realize, like, how I've been sabotaging my own relationship just because I want to be right. And I not only want to be right, but the reason why I don't forgive is because it would mean that we were equals and I need to be better than you, because that proves that I didn't do anything wrong. Wow.
That was beautiful. Thank you. Thank you so much for sharing. And I know everybody has nothing but love for you. And you touched on a few that we missed before. I want to be right. It feels that's our subconscious. We want to be right over wanting to be happy, even. And separating the human from the action. So was it a good thing? No. Were you kids? Do kids do things that aren't, they don't think through? And we have body parts and they feel good when they're touched and caressed and licked, and oh, here's an open person. Let's try this out. So it's, as an adult, when you have children, you can see how this happens. But when you're in the middle of it and you have that consequence, so little Lisa has all of these stories and lies wrapped up around this. And so it sounds like you've got, well, at least you know how to do the work now. And I can see you already breaking through. You're able to smile about this. And so since you touched on I've never forgotten, because I don't want to get in trouble again. I don't want to be taken advantage of. I have to keep my walls up and my guard up so I'm not hurt again. And again, like we were talking about before, that has nothing to do with forgiveness. That has everything to do with boundaries. And boundaries is a whole other lesson. Maybe I'll put in bonus content later on down the road. But boundaries, I'm going to post. Actually, I thought about this a while ago and I haven't done it yet. One thing I would love to put in a bonus guide that everybody can add to is a book list of favorites, because I'm sure that other people have. Oh, Marian says, yes, please, lesson on boundaries. Oh my gosh, how many things in my life I thought were problems when really it was me and my lack of boundaries. So yes, we'll do a lesson on boundaries. But anyway, you're now seeing the awareness is open that these are lies and they're keeping us. When we have these walls up, they're blocking the flow, the natural flow. So I'm going to go back and go into the forgetting piece, because this is something I just figured out the last time I did the Create Your Reality course. I also had a hard time doing my forgiveness lesson and getting it, and it was delayed because I didn't have this one piece. And I'm so excited to share this with you because it was a breakthrough for me. And the funny thing is, like, forgive and forget has always gone hand in hand. So somewhere along the line, other people had figured it out. What does it mean to forget? Anybody? What does it literally mean?
To not remember anymore.
Yeah. Like, oh, will that happen? I don't know. I have a sister, not Elizabeth. Elizabeth has a pretty good memory. I have another sister that I'll try to talk about high school things with, and she's like, oh, I don't remember. Oh, I don't remember. I've blocked everything out. And I was like, really? Everything? So yes, there's that aspect of forget. And I always had this idea that I can't forget, because then, like Lisa, I'll get in trouble again. I'll go right back in the situation. Like Elizabeth was talking about, I'm holding on to this so that I'm aware and I don't get more of the same. But then ironically, you get more of the same because that's what you're holding on to, and that's where your vibration is. So it's this sticky hamster wheel. And that's not at all what it is, you guys. We remember the facts. When we forgive and forget, we remember the facts. We remember that you survived it and you're still alive and you're okay, because remember, your subconscious, one of the biggest purposes of your subconscious mind is to keep you alive. And so if there's any threat, it's going to just like burrow in there. So we do want to remember, well, yes, that happened and I'm still alive. I survived it. And we remember the lessons we learned from the experience. And this is whether you're I'm going to just say perpetrator, but when you're at fault or they're at fault, whoever's at fault, these are the things to remember. The things to forget: when you've done the process of properly and completely releasing and forgiving, we forget the emotion. That emotion doesn't bubble up anymore. It doesn't hurt us. The bind that connects you to that situation, that circumstance, that perpetrator, that is broken. That's forgotten. It's like what Elizabeth said, when she forgave, she let go of those types of people and they just left. Before, she was holding the reins so tightly, they couldn't leave. But when we forget, when we forgive, we also forget the bind that was there. And so they are free to move on their way. And we forget the details because they just don't matter. It's just not important. There are some things you can probably think about. Something, okay, when my son was 18 months old, I was changing his diaper and he had his shoes on and he kicked me in the face and he gave me a black eye and it hurt like crazy. And I was so mad And of course, I didn't hit him because he's just being a baby and whatever, but I was angry about it and it hurt. But he was my baby. So I forgave him and I understood what happened. And once the wound healed, it it didn't bother me anymore. Yes, it happened, but I wasn't upset and I'm not upset still. That can be the same thing for big things as well. When we feel, and it's a physical feeling of release when you forgive, and then you can really let it go. Does that make sense? So here's a fist. Everybody make a fist and make it tight. Make it so tight that your fingernails are digging into your hand. And think about all of the things that you're holding on to. The people, the things, the organs, the memories, the God, the state, the house, whatever that you refuse to let go. You will never receive something better while you're still holding on to that past thing. Ever. So now open your hand and let it go. And when you open your hand, you feel the energy, right? If you're clutching it tight, you feel the circulation now is flowing. Because when there's tightness, the circulation stops, the blood doesn't flow, the energy doesn't flow, the air doesn't flow. But you open and you release and you open to the possibility. You allow for the law of flow and it moves through you with no blockage because you're open. That's why in our meditations, we uncross our legs, we uncross our arms and our hands. So we have that law of flow, the energy, the love, the life force, the inspiration, all of that can flow through you. So release it. Let that stuff go. I almost said a bad word, you guys. Let it go. Let it go. Questions, thoughts?
Did you create a thing specifically for forgiveness and letting go?
A meditation?
Yeah, that's the word.
Okay, so I don't have one that I've recorded, but here is a simple one that everybody can do, because so we recognize now that triggers live in our body, right? And they cause tension. We have, if you want to know where a trigger is hiding, where do you have tension? Angela just went like that. Guess what? That's exactly where my tension is right now. So if I were to do this meditation, I would get in a relaxed state and do the breathing, allow the energy to flow, right? Want it to flow. And then you start at the top of your head with your eyes closed and you just visualize going down through your body. Where is there tension? Where is the tension rest? And when you find a piece that has tension, you stop right there. So I'm going to stop right there at my shoulder. I'm going to say, just like in the beginning, when I had you do the look in your own eyes and say, I love you, I see you, I love you, you're more than enough. So you're going to do that with the place of tension. I see you. I forgive you for being tight. I recognize it's there. What can I do? What is it? And then you allow things to come to mind. And remember the story Elizabeth shared in the morning, or the morning earlier. The things that come to mind, you almost always want to be like, oh, that's silly. That's not. Listen to your body and listen to your subconscious. Promise yourself that I will listen to whatever comes up. So whatever comes up, the first thing that pops in your mind, okay, go with it. Oh, okay, that's there. All right, let's take a look at it. And then it may take 2 seconds, it may take 20 minutes, but there will be something and it will come up, just like Lisa had something come up right here in front of us. Like Annie found, she starts with organization and found it went all the way back to childbirth. So you never know what's going to come up, but that's how you do it. You can, well, one way. You can also journal. You can, like I said before, you can just download, dump a list on your, anybody that comes to mind, you put their name down. Earlier, I called Elizabeth out when she wasn't here in another class. She called me randomly one day. She's like, so I was doing some work and I realized I never forgave you for biting me when you were a baby. Biting, I bit her. And I was like, okay, thanks for the forgiveness. and so, and this kind of goes with the idea, like we want to hold on because we think they hurt me. They hurt me. They don't deserve forgiveness. They don't even care. They don't even know about it. They've forgotten about it. It's not for them. It's for you. So for Elizabeth, she needed to forgive me for biting her and causing her that pain that hurt her. And even though that was silly for us as adults, it wasn't silly for that 3-year-old that really got wounded. So she addressed it. She took care of it. So don't be afraid to like take care of the silly things because they're stored in you, causing physical effects. So mind dump on a piece of paper, and then you look at the people or the organs. It might be like, oh, my heart's coming up, my lungs, my left toe. I don't know. Whatever comes up, you give it permission to come up and find out why it's there and heal the relationship with your big left toe if that is needed. Who knows? Or the person, it might be I was talking to somebody else in the group earlier. I had my choir teacher. I was in like the performing choir, and he had his church pianist come in, and she was like 180 years old, and she was so mean, and she kept pointing at me. That was my perception, and saying, someone over here is pitchy and they're going out of tone, and I'm like, it's not me. And I'm such a kind, passive, sweet person. Obnoxious, yes, but very kind. Elizabeth, wasn't I?
Yes, you were.
I'm going to beat you up afterwards. I could see myself running down the risers and pushing her off her piano bench, all 180 years of her, and she would break and fall apart and die. And that's how venomous I felt towards this little old lady who was just trying to help.
I didn't like her either.
But I actually had to go back and do forgiveness, forgive myself, forgive her, forgive the choir director for not seeing that she was wrong. And you know what? Looking back now, she might have been right. It might have been me. Totally could have been me, but I didn't want to admit it back then. So it was painful. So does that answer your question? Meditation, do it on paper, however, kind of like the Patanjali thing, however you get to the end is how you do it. The last guided meditation I'm putting in for you guys this week is on that C word that feels good in you.
Courage.
Now, but close, that's good.
Compassion.
You do the pose and you feel good about yourself and you say your I am statements.
Confident.
Thank you. Oh my gosh.
That's good.
Ding, ding, ding. You win. Okay. What other questions? Okay. Is everybody committed? Let me see your right hand. Is everybody committed to find the people, the places, the things, the organs, the self that you're withholding forgiveness and give it? I will forgive.
Yes.
Yes. Okay.
I promise.
It will change your life. There have been a couple of stories earlier, people, when they do the process, you let go, and then you open your hands to receive, and you receive some cool stuff, right? You guys,